and somewhat exciting because of its adventure. And I think they were determined to nurse us back to health. And so we read with intent to occupy our mind and perhaps discover something. And I found in the first 4 books of this New Testament a very interesting personality. This man had, it seemed, just exactly what I needed. Regardless of the circumstance in which he found himself, he was able to be confident and unafraid. Now, to me, this was a very important quality because, you see, I had seen some men captured, I knew what would happen if I were captured, and I knew that it might be impossible for me to be captured and tortured without bringing shame upon my family, my mother and father, my country. I didn't know my endurance. And so I had a basic fear that if I were captured, I might be a coward. But I noticed in this man, whose life was recorded in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that he had confidence regardless of what circumstance he faced. And I was amazed when I read the account of his crucifixion, how he was able to endure and the things he said. And I thought, what a remarkable person it is. At the moment that he's dying, he can raise his head and say, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. What kind of compassion does this man have? He certainly was something special. So I continued to research those words and those scriptures in order to determine for myself how I might gain that kind of a personality and quality. And as I read on into Acts and Romans, I came upon a verse which was meaningful to Harry Porter. Romans, I discovered, was written by a man named Paul. Paul was quite a student of the law, a Pharisee, a very brilliant man, probably one of the best scholars of his day. And he wrote that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And each day as I'd read further, Harry'd say, what was that verse yesterday that you read that seemed so important? And finally, after several weeks, I knew that it was Romans 10:9. And so rather than turn, I would just say, oh, Harry, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in thine heart God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Well, on the 27th of July, a very kindly, wonderful little Filipino by the name of Agado punched me and said, wake up, Lieutenant, Harry's dead. And so they wrapped him in banana leaves and a blanket and carried him to a nearby hill overlooking Manila Bay, a beautiful sight, truly magnificent, even though the Japanese warships were visible in the distance in Manila Bay. And then, before they covered him over, they had helped me to this site. They said, "Would you like to say a few words?" And I said, "That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and believe in thine heart God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved." Now I had been intent during these days to learn as much as I possibly could about Tagalog, Pambangueño, and one of the Negrito dialects called Aeta. Unfortunately, I had been given a pencil and some scratch paper, and because of my desire to learn, I suppose, I'd been able to capture some of the dialect. As we left, the man who had been eager and anxious to teach me because he could speak English, this young Jimmy Espino said, "Lieutenant, what does that mean that you just read?" I said, "I don't know, Jimmy. I have no idea." I said, "The words just fall dead because I don't know how you confess the Lord Jesus. I don't know what that means. I don't know how you believe in your heart because I've always believed with my mind. And I don't know what it means to be saved because saving indicates someone is lost. And I don't know that I'm lost. I don't know what it means." And so the rest of the campaign was taken up with the fact that I finally regained my health, and then I went blind. I met with the Pygmy Negritos because I had to escape from the lowland rice, heavily cultivated areas occupied by the enemy because they were killing the Americans who were helping they were killing the Filipinos who were helping the Americans. Then came the communists and the organization of the Hucks. We had a three-way war: intrigue, innocent people killed, children involved. And so I decided to find refuge in the mountains. The mountains were not known to be friendly country because the Pygmy Negritos were not considered trustworthy. In fact, recorded in a history book that I happened to obtain at that time, it said that the missionaries recommended no contact be established because they were impossible to reach, to train, to teach, to lead. They were too primitive and absolutely not interested in industry. Fortunately, a series of incidents took place. I won some confidence among the Negritos where other Americans had been killed, beheaded by them. And I alone lived with them for some time. Then other Americans joined. We were able to then establish a guerrilla organization which gathered information which was radioed out.